Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to this course on Urban Services Planning. I am Dr. Devapradeep Pandit from Department of Architecture and Regional Planning, IIT Kharagpur. In the first lecture, we will introduce this concept of Urban Services Planning. So, the different concepts that we will cover are on what are urban services, what are the different dimensions of these services, and we will talk a little bit on the citizen-centric e-governance services, and finally, in general, we will talk about urban services planning. Cities all over the world are particularly in the emerging economies such as India is growing at a very rapid pace, and not only the major cities are growing, but many of the rural centers are gradually being transformed into urban areas, and lots of people not only from the rural areas migrate to different cities, but from smaller cities people migrate to larger cities and so on. So this migration is primarily the reason because people want to look for better opportunities, they will look for jobs, so they will, or for a better life or a better quality of life, so people would like to tend to migrate to better urban areas or bigger urban areas. Now this puts an enormous amount of pressure on the land, that is the existing land in an urban area, on the existing infrastructure that is there in the urban area, and the different sorts of urban services that are provided in an urban area. So the problem is we have a fixed quantity of land which needs to be expanded because new people are coming in, and this expansion requires the infrastructure to be augmented as well, but sometimes the infrastructure design is such that augmentation is a problem, and for that matters, if I have to provide certain kind of services to the citizens, those kind of based on the kind of people who are coming to this urban area, we have to cater to different groups of people. So gradually, because of this enormous growth, it's getting difficult to deliver this kind of urban services in urban areas, and the challenges are increasing every day. And particularly in the context of we have different socioeconomic groups, every groups have different requirements. So all this diversity is actually making delivering of these services very, very difficult. So in addition to the demographic or additional to the pressure from population, and also based on this and also other issues that are related to land use or the amount of available resources that are there in the urban area, we have other looming pressure challenges as well, such as the climate change. And as you know that because of climate change, there are certain changes in the weather pattern. We are having more number of cyclones, and we are seeing that there is increasing flooding in urban areas and so on. So all these problems are augmented. So the existing problems which are already there are getting augmented because of climate change. So when not only climate change, because all our urban areas are growing and there are new areas being transformed into urban areas, there is also pressure on the amount of resources that we can spend to augment our infrastructure or augment services in urban area. So that means the problems are increasing, but at the same time the resources required to tackle this kind of problem, both physical resources as well as budgetary resources or financial resources, both are, there is a pressure on both of this. So that's the challenge that we have to deal with. And to do that, we have to really look into urban service delivery from a different perspective. We have to use different sorts of business models. We have to use different new technologies, and we have to see that how all these mechanisms that we propose can actually help us in delivering more efficient urban services. So it's to bring in these new ways of business models of operation, or to bring in these new technologies. For example, if I try to introduce smart monitoring systems or smart systems in our urban areas, this also requires transformation of every aspect of urban services planning. That means we need to transform the overall planning approach, the governance approach, and also the regulatory aspects that govern urban services plan. Now, regulatory aspects means, for example, the different rules and the laws that we set, or the standards that we set, that this is what has to be delivered. So all these aspects needs to be looked into, and how do I design a system which will be able to take care of these new technologies, or it will be able to deliver decisions at a much more faster pace. That is the focus of this kind of transformation that is required for urban areas. So in addition to, when we talk about this transformation, actually we are talking about we need to enhance the knowledge that is there. That is the first thing. That means our municipal or our officials or the urban managers who are supposed to deliver these services, or the technical people who are supposed to deliver these services, they should be aware of the different technologies. They should be, so their existing knowledge base has to be enhanced so that they can introduce this kind of services in urban areas. So to take care of these changes, so not only the staff or the knowledge base of the staff has to be enhanced, but at the same time the institutional capacity or the overall the structure of the institutions, how to design a particular management service, all this needs to be upgraded. So institutional capacity reform is also required. Then to make sure that we get finance, and as I was telling you that finances are limited, we have to make sure that we get access to credit. That means we can get money at we can take loans at a lower interest rate, and we have to make sure that we generate adequate money inside our municipal areas or inside our urban areas. So that means the services that we are going to provide, that shouldn't be given free of cost, but there has to be some component of recovery so that we can generate finances to actually sustain the overall services delivery for an urban area. Finally, we talk about equity in service provision, as there are different socioeconomic groups, and as you know that in an urban area there are different parts of the city maybe have different, the quality of life may be different approaches needs to be taken to address those particular service gaps. So how do I provide service, and for whom I should provide service? Should I provide service uniformly to everybody, or should I provide some services more in certain areas? So this is where we talk about equity, and equity is another big aspect which has to be considered when we do urban services planning. So first let us try to define what are urban services. Now Lineberry defines it as the services performed by municipalities are those most vital to the preservation of life, liberty, property and public enlightenment. Now what does preservation of life mean? That means we require the basic services, such as we require services to fight fire, we require services to provide us security like the police services, we require services towards sanitation, that means we want clean cities, and finally we want public health services. That means in case we have certain health issues, we, like for example, there is a dengue outbreak or there is a malaria outbreak in the city, there has to be some way to address this through certain services in the urban area. So public health is also a big part of urban services plan. Now when we talk about liberty, that means it's what kind of rights we give to people, what rights people have. So this is what when we talk about the police courts or the prosecutors, this is what we are talking about, that every person has a right to voice his opinion as well as the way he wants to live his life, that he can do. So this is liberty. And then property means when a person is living in an urban area, we cannot take his, and he owns something, we cannot forcefully take his particular property, right? So, and not only that, how do I manage this property? And the biggest property in urban area is land or the buildings that come on those land, right? So how do I manage that? So we need to zone the urban area to a certain, we need to create different zones, like some zones for commercial area, some zones for residential area, or we need to do a proper planning or a structural plan of that particular city. And then we also need to generate resources by taxing this. That means we can ask people to pay money for the property they own and the services they receive in that particular city. So this zoning, planning, taxing, these are not physical services that are being provided, but these are also some sort of semi or quasi services that you can say that has to be taken up in urban areas to manage urban areas. And finally, to improve the quality of human life, or we can introduce schools, libraries. So not every person in a city can afford to go to a school where he can buy he can pay for his education like a private school. So there has to be some facility from the government so that everybody has right to education, and so that should be provided. So that's why municipal services also include provision of education via schools, libraries, and so on. And in addition to what Lineberry said, William C. Byard, he also introduced a few additional points. For example, he talks about the pursuit of happiness. So pursuit of happiness means how I can improve the quality of life by giving some sort of recreational and other aspects, or we look into some recreational and other aspects, such as we talk about provision of parks, provision of spaces for recreation in an urban area. Then overall promotion of general welfare, which may include the transportation services, the social services, the street network, and all this. And overall, we can also say that in addition to all this, we also require domestic tranquility. So that means the overall neighborhood level environment, the housing situation, all these things should be also taken care of. So this is how urban services has been defined. But if I want to give it a more distinct definition on what urban services is, I can take the cue from Charles K. Coe, who has in his book on urban services, he has mentioned 17 core services and 4 functional domains. So what are these 4 domains? These are public safety and health services, public works and planning services, leisure services, and support services. So these are more or less aligned with the previous aspects that we were talking about. And for example, in public safety and health services, we have police services, we have fire services, emergency management systems, emergency medical systems, for example, ambulance services in a city. For many of the old people living in neighborhoods and all, in many parts of the country, we will show you in some case studies later maybe, that they complain about availability of ambulances at different times of the day. So that's a big service that has to be provided from the municipal government, so that people have access to this kind of emergency medical services. Then animal control, public health, and so on, right? So similarly, when we talk about public works and planning services, which includes certain water treatment and distribution of water, wastewater and stormwater management, street cleaning, street maintenance, and construction and repair of streets, and we have to do regular inspection and all this. Then solid waste collection and disposal, urban forestry, all this comes under public works and planning services. And finally, within leisure services, we can focus on parks and libraries and those kind of facilities. And in support services, we can talk about certain kinds of public facilities, certain kinds of public equipments, like for example, in many cities nowadays, to promote active living and to promote healthy living, people are introducing some sort of exercise and gym equipments in urban parks and all, so that people can also exercise along with a little bit of enjoying their walk in the park. They can also do some sort of exercises. So this sort of things could be part of urban support services. So when we talk about urban services, usually we are talking about public services, municipal services, or local services. So these are the 3 terms which are used interchangeably. That means sometimes people will say public service, sometimes people will say municipal service, and sometimes people will say local service. Now, problem is, public, even though it is a public service, but it doesn't mean that the service has to be provided by the government or by that urban local body or the municipal corporation for that matters, right? So it has to be provided, it can be provided by a private entity. For example, if there are a lot of old people in a particular community, then private companies can come and provide support at homes, right, for helping out the senior citizens. So in that case, it's a service provided by a private entity, but it can be monitored via the urban local bodies, but it's not directly provided by the urban local bodies. Similarly, when we say municipal services planning, there are a lot of services such as health services, education services, transportation services. These are not directly provided by the municipal body. So they may be partly provided by the municipal body. Maybe, for example, when I set up public bus services, many private operators can provide this service, but the municipal body can actually set what sort of fare can be charged from this particular or in this particular urban area. So it may have a say on that, or in which routes the service has to be provided. But it may partly be involved, but the service is not directly provided by the government entity or the municipal body, right? Or similarly, if you talk health, education, there could be private nursing home, there could be big hospitals. Similarly, there are big private schools. So they are all providing the same service. They are monitored to a certain extent by the municipal bodies, but actual service is provided by private entities. Similarly, when we talk about the other things such as electricity, gas, telephone services, so in this particular cases, municipality either directly is usually not involved in providing these services. We have these companies which could be state-owned companies, which could be fully private companies, or it could be some sort of semi-government body which provides this kind of services. Usually we call this utility companies, right? So these utility companies, they not be limited to one urban area. So there may be a utility company which operates in multiple urban areas. So if it's a state level body, it may operate in different cities of the state, or if it's a private company, it may operate in different parts of the country, right? So in that case, it's not a municipal service. That means even though the service needs to be provided at the municipal level, it's a service which will benefit all the citizens, but actually citizens are paying for it, and also the service is provided by a public company or a private company or a utility company. So usually, so this electricity, gas, telephone services, these are fully privately owned this utility companies. Whereas there could be another form of utility companies which are closely connected with municipal bodies, and they jointly provide these services with the urban local bodies, like such as utilities in water supply, sanitation. These are the companies which are in most cases partially owned by the company, partially owned by the government. And what these companies do is they monitor the services, they will set up the rules for provision of services, and they will they can also give some of their services on contract to certain private companies to augment their capacity, or they can by themselves also provide this kind of services. So to summarize, when we talk about public municipal services, there are services provided by public utilities. It could be public utility companies or even sometimes private utility companies. Services co-produced by voluntary and non-profit organizations. For example, suppose for solid waste management, when I have a collection system in the neighborhood, a local non-governmental non-profit organization may be actually providing those kind of services, right? So in that case, it could be also a voluntary service by a particular community group to do a certain service for a particular neighborhood. So services could be co-produced by voluntary and non-profit organizations. Then services co-produced by private citizens and governments. For example, a private citizen is having an app through which he can report that where in the urban road network, where are the potholes, or he can take a photograph and he can upload it, right? So he is also doing a work, or he is also doing a service for everybody else. So it is a self-reporting case by citizens, and this also helps in augmenting the service delivery for urban areas. So this is where a private citizen also becomes a partner to a government, not directly but indirectly. Then services provided by the private sector in lieu of government or co-produced with government. That means sometimes the government gives a contract to a private company which can execute a particular work, or it can do it as a public-private partnership with a company. It can co-produce it with a particular government, with the public, this body or the municipal body. Then there are e-services which are produced by joint ventures between public and private agencies. For example, tax collection, or for example, new application for water supply connection, right? So there is an app which is developed by a private company. They take the feedback from the people. They also take the money, or a person can pay money for that. Their job is to send this information to the municipal body or the particular office which actually does this work. And not only that, to actually monitor that if the work is being executed, or to make sure that facilitate this entire process, right? So it's a joint venture between a private company which is developed this particular smart system and the public company which is actually physically producing this particular service, right? And finally, there are many services which are also provided by the ULB directly. That means the urban local body or the municipal body, they also provide many services on their own as well. So if I want to categorize the services, you can see that this categorization is also this different people have done different forms of categorization. But if I in general want to categorize, you can see that there are urban line services. This means these are standard services provided along a network and all. So as you can see, water services, police services, fire services, street cleaning and all, housing inspection, social services, public health. So these are provided at certain spatial locations in an urban area directly. Then there are quasi-line services. That means these are services which are provided in an urban area, but this is not actually experienced by the people directly, but these are more in terms of rules, laws, or other kinds of things. For example, the zoning rules for an urban area, the tax rate, how do you set up this tax rate, right? So there would be planning as an urban planner or as a planner for this municipal services. I have to determine how do I set the tax rate for this property tax, or tax rate for something else, or rent control measures. What sort of rent control measures should be there? Or what sort of other affirmative actions has to be taken for this particular area, or what sort of zoning laws I should do for this particular urban area. So these are also planning actions that has to be undertaken, but this is not an actual physical service delivery at a particular geographic location. Finally, there are meta services. That means which are services which are not actually planning, but it's a sort of a philosophy or a decision making, like for example, local control, fiscal zoning, finance philosophy for this particular urban area, and to what extent of service is provided. That means what should be the quality of the service. So this kind of decision making also is part of the urban planning process. So it's the way the overall, when we have an urban area, of course there are people who live there, but people are actually represented by elected representatives, and based on the overall philosophy of that particular elected body, there may be certain decisions which are taken for an urban area. So in that way, we can say that those kind of decisions also form another level of planning that has to be done, which could be called as meta services. Now, when we talk about urban services planning, there are few questions that comes to our mind. The first question is, who gets what kind of services, of course, and when he gets that and how he gets that. So the first of all, when I talk in terms of the overall urban area, that means what variety of services has to be provided. That means not all municipalities provide all sorts of services. So what varieties of services has to be provided, and not everything has to be provided at the same point of time. So if a municipality is growing, or I want to develop my the services or the quality of life in my urban area, I will gradually improve upon it, right? So that variety of services has to be considered. Then the quality of service level, right? That means what should be the quality of the service that I should provide. Now, why quality of service is important? Because quality of service determines that based on the tax base or based on the amount of money I can generate from my services that I am providing, I will be able to decide on what sort of quality of service I should provide. Now, to give you an example, if I go to some countries, I can drink water from a public tap, right? Whereas if I say that in a standard Indian urban municipal area, I may not be that much confident to drink water from a municipal water supply system. Now, the reason may be because of many reasons, maybe because of certain the quality of the treatment, maybe because of the quality of the network where there may be some leakage, and we may feel that the water quality that we receive is not that good that we can directly drink it out of a tap, or sometimes we can drink in certain municipalities we can drink it, some places we cannot. So that quality of service, if I really want to give a better service, I have to put more money, or we have to invest more in checking, regularly inspecting if there are leaks in the water supply network. We have to improve the quality of treatment, so that requires more money. And if I don't collect that amount of tax from the population, how will I be able to sustain this kind of services? So tax and quality of service goes hand in hand together. So then finally comes the distribution pattern, that is when we are providing services, are we going to provide services everywhere exactly uniformly, or we are going to provide certain kinds of services somewhere, whereas we can favor certain geographic areas, or we can favor certain neighborhoods, or we can favor certain land uses. For example, if I want to attract more people to our city or more businesses to our city, so that means the services that I should provide to my commercial area should be so nice that business would be planning to relocate to this particular area, or people would like to set up shops over there. Now, what's the benefit for the urban local body? If a business sets up shop in that particular city, probably I'd be able to generate more taxes or more revenue out of that. So that is how we can also determine that where I should provide these services. Now, also some services are for the entire population, then there are some services which are targeted towards certain population groups. For example, if I have a service where we have a health monitoring services for some people, then that means maybe for older people we may have a service so that we can at the community level there may be we may actually call those families which are having older people to find out that if they are well, if their health is well, and so on, because many families older people live alone and there has nobody to take care of these people. So that has to be actually considered. Now, in addition to all this kind of services, as you remember, we were talking about quasi-line services. So, lot of this kind of services could be done in a more efficient way through the use of certain technologies or use of citizens directly. So, citizen-centric administration is one thing that we are going to focus on. That means what it wants to do is it wants to bring the services, instead of going through an intermediary, you can directly avail a service from your own, from your own smartphone or from your own computer terminal. Now, what this means? That means that you are removing certain levels in between your application and the receipt of the service. And because it is done via this smart, system, automatically there is no problem with transparency or no problem with your request getting lost or those issues, right? So that means if I use this kind of services, or if I provide these services, which could be, these are also known as e-governance services, and particularly for municipal areas, these are municipal e-governance services. So if I allow people to directly apply for these services from the safety of or from the convenience of their home, and automatically this request is recorded, it goes into to the right places, to the right people, and immediately people can act upon it, right? So we remove a lot of middlemen in the process, and that actually makes the process very, very transparent, efficient, stable, and it will help to address the concerns of the citizen faster, and because it is done in this way, overall the governance improves, right? So over here you can see some e-governance services provided by the Government of West Bengal Municipal Affairs Department. So this Urban Development and Municipal Affairs Department provide this kind of services. If you go to their website, you can see that you can actually do this kind of they actually provide this kind of services directly to the citizen. So this includes construction permit for new buildings, intimation of the commencement of construction, then permission to cut a road for some purpose, sanction for storage of construction materials in some particular areas, and then permission for shooting movies maybe. So all these permissions, instead of you going to the municipality, interacting with people, for filling up some forms, you can do it all interactively via a e-process, right? So that is how this entire process can be made much more efficient. Now, once we have defined the different types of services, now let us look into what Indian urban municipal bodies are supposed to provide. So, as per the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, and which actually gave changed the way the entire governance of the country has to be conducted, it said that in urban areas we have to form local self-governments, and this is mandatory as per Constitution. And because this local government, and what it will do is it will do decentralization of power. So power was in the hands of the central government, the state government, but after this amendment, power is also given to the municipal governments, right, or the urban local bodies. Now, what is this power? The power is to collect tax. The power they are also given power to conduct to take a lot of decisions. Now, because they are given power to collect tax or to generate revenue, they are also given a lot of responsibilities and also power to execute these responsibilities. So, these are all listed in the 12th schedule, right, of the 12th schedule of the Constitution. So, these powers are, some of the powers which are listed are urban planning, including town planning. So, overall planning of the urban area, that is given. Roads and bridges, construction of those. Regulation of land use and construction of building. Slum improvement and upgradation. Regulation of slaughterhouses, cattle pounds and all those. Then there could be a lot of, then this, as you can see, that these are mostly related with urban land use and transportation, mobility planning. These are the things. Now, some of this power is given to the municipality, but not all. Still, some of this power is given to only development bodies, right? So, a municipal body and a development body is two different entities. Now, development bodies are in charge of developing a particular urban area, planning for a particular urban area, whereas a municipal body is supposed to provide certain services and it can collect revenue and so on. So, there is municipal bodies is also supposed to be given this power, but still this is not there in many of our urban areas, but gradually we are moving towards that regime where municipalities will also have the power to increase their boundaries, or they will also decide on certain zoning and all those aspects. Then in addition to this land use, zoning and all this planning, this part, there are also other services which are related with urban poverty alleviation, then planning for economic and social development, promoting of cultural, educational and aesthetic aspects and so on. So, these are different aspects where we try to look into the different sections of society, provide some social services, and those kind of services also has to be provided from the municipality. Then urban municipal services, then finally the more physical and social infrastructure services planning aspects. This include the urban forestry, then protection of the environment in urban areas, then provision of parks, gardens, playgrounds, then street lighting services, then provision of bus stops, this parking lots and so on, water supply, and then public health, sanitation, solid waste management services, fire services and so on. So, these are the different line services and facilities that has to be provided by the municipal governments. So, if I can summarize, there are three kinds of services. One is related with land use, transportation, those kind of planning. One is related with services which are provided, which require a lot of infrastructure such as water supply, then sanitation and so on. Maybe solid waste management also requires infrastructure, but there is a huge component of services like waste collection and so on. So, but fire services, this more than infrastructure, it's a service, right? Then there are services for health and all this. So, if I can divide this the physical and social infrastructure services planning, we can say that some services are provided by the utility companies and all, and then there are other services which are mostly provided by the municipal bodies. So, in that way, the entire urban utilities and services planning can be divided into two parts, and in this particular course, we are going to look into into urban services planning, whereas in the second part of this course, urban utilities planning, which involves water supply, sanitation, and drainage, it is already being covered in one of my earlier NPTEL courses. So this is the second part of this particular NPTEL course, which talks about the service planning. And in addition, if you are interested to look into urban land use and transportation planning, then you can follow this particular NPTEL course on urban land use transportation planning, and the link is also given in this particular slide. So these are the references. And to conclude, governing or delivering services in urban areas for diverse socio-economic population groups is challenging, and it requires adoption of new technologies and business models while undertaking continuous reforms of municipal capacity and regulations. And while urban services cover many dimensions, as we have discussed, and can be provided by both public and private entities, urban municipal services is guided by the 12th schedule. And in this particular course, we are looking into the services provided by municipal bodies, and particularly we will look into services planning. Thank you.